Welcome back to the You Empowered podcast. Today, I'm joined by a woman that I deeply respect, my friend and fellow coach, Holly Mills. Holly is a healthy habits and weight loss coach who brings so much wisdom and understanding to sustainable change. So I'm super excited to chat with her today about her own health and fitness journey and really dig into what it takes to be consistent, not just for a few days or a few weeks, but for life. So Holly, welcome. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me on. I'm really excited for this chat, and it just really boosted my ego in this.
I'll always be that cheerleader friend, Holly. You can always count on me for that.
Well, no, thank you so much for having me on.
No, it's pleasure, absolute pleasure. So, Holly, I would love to know, where did your health and fitness journey start for you? And was there a moment when you noticed a shift in how you showed up for yourself?
I guess for me, we've got to take it right back to the beginning. I would have been around probably 7, 8 when I first started to notice my body. And I think that's probably the age that most, probably most women, girls, I can't speak for anybody else, but for me as a girl, I definitely noticed the awareness of my body starting to come in around that age. I remember going to the swimming baths as a kid. And we were doing it when you were in school and you were starting to learn to swim and stuff. And getting changed in the changing rooms and looking around at other people's bodies, because it was that age where you were starting to get aware of things. And as I looked at the bodies, I realised that mine looked slightly different. And whether it did look different or not, I'm not sure, because I can't really remember what my body looked like at that age. But it felt different. And that was the first time I think I really felt I guess the influence of diet culture and where I was seeing things, and I really started to observe my own body. And then I started my first diet at age 10. I did it a slimming, I think it was Slimming World, the one that I did at age 10. And I basically remember crying to my mum. I was sat in a beanbag in my childhood bedroom, crying to my mum saying that I felt fat. And this was a conversation that we had. And my mum was like, right, okay, well, let's go on a diet then, because that was what she knew how to do. And I've spoken about this before. And one thing I've always felt is I never want to blame my mum for that decision, because she did the best that she could with the tools that she had. And she made that, she was like, I just need to help my daughter, who is clearly in pain because she doesn't feel like she likes her body. And she did the thing that every magazine, everything in diet culture has ever taught her to do, and that was diet. And that was when I went on my first diet. So I did red days and green days, as it was back then. And we started off, we lost a little bit of weight. We weighed in every Monday night. We wrote the measurements down in this little notebook, and we did it, me, my mum and my dad. I remember for the first day I had pasta on a lunch instead of my usual sandwiches. Hated it. But I was allowed unlimited pasta, and this was where kind of the thoughts around food started to come in, and understanding where nutrition actually played an influence. Obviously that wasn't a necessarily an accurate representation of how nutrition works when it comes to fat loss, but it was the first time, and I would have been age 10, that this really came into my life. And then over and over, I just ended up throughout my teenage years on and off diets. I went on my next diet. I think that was Weight Watchers around age 13. And that one ended pretty quickly when I realised that I could eat rich tea biscuits, and that would be my entire day of eating was just rich tea biscuits. With you in Australia, I don't know if you've ever tried a rich tea biscuit, but they are perfect for dunking into tea. So you get your tea, you dunk your biscuit, they are elite. They are the best biscuit to dunk, in my opinion.
They are so good. I was born in London, so I am aware. Yes, they are good.
You have had the rich tea biscuit exposure.
Yeah.
So if anyone's listening and they've not had the rich tea biscuit exposure, you are missing out. But anyway, realised that I realised that as I was on this, that I could just eat, I think it was 36 rich tea biscuits, and that would be my whole day of eating. And I was like, maybe this isn't the way forwards. So that diet ended pretty quickly. And then the next diet that I did was 5-2, where it was basically eat 500 or 400 calories for 2 days a week, and then eat whatever you want, in quotation marks, for the other 5 days of the week. I'd have been about 16 at that point. And 15, 16. And I remember going to school that day and just been starving. And obviously I understood nothing about food, so I didn't understand anything about fullness. So I'd had for breakfast something like 2 slices of brown toast, and then I'd had an apple, and that's all I'd eaten all day. And I was starving. I remember my belly grumbling so much. And then I got home and I was like, I need to eat something. I'm just so preoccupied. My brain was just thinking about food, and I just couldn't stop those thoughts about food. So that diet ended the day it started. So
Did
after
you
that, I went
notice,
on.
is that where you noticed more like your, for want of a better word, like that food noise? Did that come into play around that age for you, or did it start when you started your first diet at kind of 10? Like, what did you kind of notice in those years following up where you started, you had that first moment where, you know, you're with your mom, like, and I wholeheartedly agree with you. Like, you know, parents, they bless them, they do the best they can. But, you know, in that moment when, you know, you were upset, you weren't happy with your body, as a lot of young girls unfortunately are, and then you started that diet, like, going through those years where you tried different diets, how did you notice your relationship with food evolve, and from, for better or for worse, but how did you notice that evolve over those years?
It's really interesting because I never thought about my relationship with food until after I was like APT, and I never thought
Yeah.
that I had any like hang-ups around food, except when I now look back and reflect on it, I'm like, there was a lot of things that for me came up, and they were to do with the way that we spoke around food in our house. And we spoke around food and how food was used. And there are things that, like, if I ever had kids, I wouldn't do. And, like, the things that we did are not necessarily, like, uncommon things. Like, they're very normal, like, very, like, I guess British ways of thinking about food. But, like,
Sure.
for me, it's quite an interesting phenomenon to think, it feels like this is why I think like this around food, but it's not necessarily this was done on purpose or this wasn't done on purpose. So, for example, I used to go around to my grandparents on a Wednesday. Every Wednesday after school, we used to go around to grandma and granddad's. And we sat there with me, my two brothers, and my two cousins. And so they were all boys, and we always did a lot of running round. So we'd literally get there, we'd be playing football, we'd be playing cricket, we'd be playing badminton, whatever it was that grandma and granddad had out, we would be playing, and we would play it for like several hours before dinner. We'd then have dinner, and then we'd be back outside running around playing again. So we'd be hot, sweaty, and this is all after a day of school as well. So
I love
we were kind of like working up quite the appetite at the point. And
Sure.
my grandma and granddad wouldn't let us leave the table. They were very traditional in their values. They are very traditional in their values. It's always, you've got to have a clean plate, and you couldn't have dessert until you'd had your meal, and until you'd finished off your plate. So my granddad used to rate our plates, and he would say things like 10 out of 10 clean plate. And he would also say things like, you've done such a good job at cleaning that plate. Yes, there was a pattern on there before you started. So it was just little things like that. And like,
Yeah.
you don't think anything of them, but as an adult, when you start to realize that these things then have perpetuated the cycle of I've got to finish my dinner off, even if I'm past the point of fullness, I have to eat everything on my plate because I need a 10 out of 10 clean plate. And these things then fall into like the all or nothing mindset and perfectionism, because for me, like, I always found that I was a bit of an overachiever in school, and that then led me to, like, you know, striving for the highest grades, aiming for that 10 out of 10, being a perfectionist and always pushing for that little bit more. And because I did that, I also did that in my food relationship. So I had to have a 10 out of 10 clean plate. I needed my granddad's approval, of course I did. So like these things then perpetuated that like cycle around food. And it wasn't until I was probably about 23, 24, and I was reflecting on my relationship with food growing up, and I was like, you don't realize how much these things influence you and where you eat and like how you eat. And as well, once you'd eaten dinner, you were allowed to basically eat unlimited desserts. So grandma would also bake. And so we'd have dessert, which would be some sort of like crumble and custard, or like apple pie and custard, something like that. Always a great time. But then she'd also have like cookies and biscuits and jam tarts all on the side. So you'd then just be allowed to just go grab them, eat them, grab them, eat them. There was no monitoring around it. It was just like they were on the side, they were there to be eaten. And part of that is probably really helpful because it said that those foods weren't like off limits, so you didn't have to limit yourself with them. But also, I had no stop button. Like, I was running around with a lot of energy, and I was eating these like high sugar foods, which would have been really like spiking in the dopamine of a 7-year-old. And like, I was just having a great time. But like, all of those things then led to, like, I guess my relationship with food being like developed in the way that it did. And then my relationship with my body, because obviously as a 7-year-old, you don't understand calories in versus calories out. And when none of society understands that either, that's not something that my mum could have helped me with, because she didn't understand how fat loss worked either. We were in the age of, if you eat fat, you get fat. So like, it didn't matter what you were eating. It was just, it's as long as you were eating, if you were eating vegetables, it didn't matter. Yeah, I think to answer the question in a roundabout way, I think my relationship with food and like food noise probably part of it is a genetic factor. I think probably as a person, I am just predisposed to more food noise. But I think on a like level of like like cultural and
Mm.
environmental. Like I've definitely been influenced in that way that like food is like, I guess one, food is going to be like, food has never been scarce, but it's definitely been reserved in certain areas. But
Yeah.
also there are no, like you can eat everything like eat too much of things, and like that overconsumption was also like partly encouraged, and like past the point of fullness.
Yeah, of
So
course.
like I guess all of those things would influence like the food noise, but I think they all kind of amalgamated together, the good and the bad, and that then led me into this kind of like dieting spiral for from
Of
about
course.
about age 20.
Of course, and going what you said from a cultural and societal perspective, it makes sense because the tools that you had at your disposal were that, right? Both culturally and societally, you were like, this is the tool that I need to work on in order to, love my body and to, lose fat and to, eat in a better way. Although obviously being a kid, like, yeah, bring on the biscuits and bring on, the apple crumble, go for it, as any kid would do, especially any active kid running around, right? So I'm curious to know though, because you mentioned when you reflected on it, you're around 23, 24. Was that the first time that you'd had a chance to actually look back at when you first started like your dieting journey and your fat loss journey? And what did you, I guess, where you're at around 23, 24, where did you notice like what shifted for you in that moment where you were like, okay, I've tried all these different diets, I've tried all these different things. What was that kind of moment where you were like, this isn't working for me? And I'm also noticing that my relationship with food, obviously as a child, you wouldn't have that awareness or understanding. But when was it that you noticed that you had that awareness? When did that awareness develop for you? And how did you shift that in order to, I guess, show up for yourself in a more healthier, supportive way?
Yeah, so for me, like I guess that my final diet like started in around 2019, so I would have been about 20, yeah, 20 when I started it. And this was like, it came because I looked in the mirror one day. I was sat drying my hair. When I dry my hair, I always sit in my underwear in front of the mirror. The main reason for that is that I get really sweaty when drying my hair, so I want minimal clothing on. It was to be an empty experience basically. So I sat, and I've done this for years.
Yeah.
So I was sat in my underwear in front of my uni mirror, and I was looking at my body, and I thought, I was like, I know I'd had a really tough time over the last like kind of couple of years. I'd got depression in my first year of uni. I was emotionally eating a lot, and it would kind of like all like accumulated, and I was finally feeling a little bit more like myself again. I finally felt like a person, and got to like that point where I sat in front of the mirror and I was like, Holly, your body's been taking care of you, even if you've not been taking care of it. It's time that you actually start to make a change now, and like you actually start looking after yourself. Because I had this vision in my head, right? I was like, I want my 20s to be, I want to just be able to go out for a run whenever I want to go out for a run. I want to be the kind of person that eats healthy food but also lives their life. I want to be the kind of person that's in a relationship with someone that's but like feels like they're like in an equal. They don't constantly feel like they're not good enough because their body's not good enough. I want to be the person who like loves themselves unconditionally, and like they don't need that. They don't need the validation from anybody else, but also people do pay them compliments. So it's
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
well, let's hit compliments. Let's stop pretending that we don't.
Yeah, of course. Let's be real here.
Boost my ego. So it's really important, I think, to like recognize that I had this vision that like of who I wanted to be. And I think if you are on a fat loss journey, or you are like wanting to make this change, you're like, I want to really make this the last time that I start, just figuring it out what it is that you want, where are we going, and getting crystal clear on that vision. Because otherwise you can feel like you've been pulled in different directions, and it's because your motivation's coming from, not really coming from you. It's not internal, it's coming from external sources. So for me, I knew this was internal because I knew exactly where we were going. But
Yeah.
I asked myself, I was sat on my bedroom floor in my underwear, drying my hair, and I was like, right, what do I need to do? Like how do I make this a change that lasts? I don't want to spend the next 20, 25, 30, 40 years on the same diet that everybody else seems to be doing, because everybody seems to be on a diet. For like every woman that I knew had always been on a diet, or had been like on and off and on and off and on and off. And like like my grandma used to go to a slimming group. And like all of these things, every woman in my life I knew had been in some sort of like slimming club or
Yeah.
on some sort of diet at some point in their life. And I was like, I don't want that for me. I don't want to live my entire life just being constantly like, oh, I've lost weight, put weight back on, I've lost weight, I've put weight back on. So
Yeah.
I started researching and I was like, right, let's find out what this is. So I started watching a lot of YouTube videos on what fat loss was. And this is pre the time that everybody was talking about calorie deficits. And that was like common knowledge. This was still in the time of like endomorphs and ectomorphs. So I don't know whether you remember this. Yeah, don't know whether you remember this period, but this was in the like, oh, so certain people hold on to fat and they need a low carb diet because of this. And we're still very much in the low carb era. But I started learning about that and I was like, cool, science is interesting and like science is like falling into like this area and it's probably going to be important. So I started learning a little bit more about nutrition. And in that learning about nutrition, I learned about the importance of like different foods and like obviously you knew fruit and vegetables were healthy. I learned about calorie tracking. So I started tracking my calories. And I was like, right, let's make these adjustments. And I had a Fitbit at the time, and my Fitbit would tell me how many calories I'd burn in a day. The accuracy of smart trackers is like really low, but like I was using it as a rough guide and going, right, okay, so if I've burnt 2,300 calories in a day, I can eat 1,800 calories, I'm in a calorie deficit. Next day, right, okay, I burnt 2,100 calories, today I'm eating 1,600 calories. I wouldn't recommend doing this as an approach. Now, what I would recommend is just going for a nice stable number across the week. You'll have higher days, lower days. Some days it'll be 600 calorie deficit, some days it'll be 400, but across the week it'll be a 500 calorie deficit per day.
Yeah.
That was, go ahead.
No. I didn't want to interrupt you there, but I just wanted to pause for a second and pull back what you said earlier because it was so powerful and I don't want to miss it for anyone who's listening. But you mentioned that your turning point for you was actually like saying who you wanted to be. Like you were like, I want to be a woman in my 20s who goes for a run. I want to be a woman whose partner doesn't feel inadequate and like who we have an equal relationship. All of those things are identity based. And I just want to pause there because what you shared was so powerful. And if anyone actually gets what you just said there, that in itself is really powerful because your identity and how you see yourself is can be your bestest friend when shifting and making those changes in your health and fitness journey, or your greatest enemy. And what I mean by that flipped, it was right then and there in that moment, you're like, this is the woman that I want to be. And therefore that intrinsic motivation was just effortless for you because that your value in that goal was like, this is the person I want to be, which is such a powerful motivator and shifter. I know motivation gets thrown around a lot in the fitness industry, but that right there was so powerful. The flip side of that though, is a woman listening being like, well, I'm not a consistent person, or I'm not an exercise person, or I've always been a binge eater, and labeling yourself that way, or again, self-identifying with that also is super detrimental. So it's like the flip side, like you can use your identity to be the driver, the internal driver that actually takes you towards your goals, or it can be the biggest like ball and chain that you're trying to push through in order to get those results. And I just wanted to pause and share that because if a woman listening right now gets what you just said, like that in itself is super powerful. So I didn't want to interrupt you. Please go ahead with what you were going to say, but that right there was really cool.
To add to that as well, like, is whether you believe you can or cannot, it will be true. So like if you believe that you can lose weight and keep it off, you will be able to lose weight and keep it off. If you don't believe that you can lose weight and keep it off, your body and your brain is going to try to find evidence to make that true. So like you might as well believe in yourself. Like someone once said to me, like, oh, you've like to talk about ego was like, oh, you've got a really big ego. And I was like, no, I was like, I just believe in myself. And I was like, if I don't believe in myself, who is going to believe in me? I was like, why should I expect you to believe in me if I don't believe in myself? So one thing that I've like tried to do, and I think like this has been has just been something that's really helped me in life. And it's I always believe that I can, like, because what's the point in believing that I can't? So like, if I believe that I can't, I'm not going to achieve it. So it's like, I'd rather aim high and believe that I can achieve those things and keep working towards it, knowing that I've done everything that I can to achieve that, but also be the person that believes it even if nobody else believes in it. And if they don't believe in it, just use that to fuel you a little bit further to prove them wrong. But like, I will prove myself right every single time. Like, I don't think there's been a time where I haven't figured something out, and that's always because I believe that I can figure it out. And I think like, if you are someone who thinks, I'm not sure how like I'm going to be able to do this, it's okay, you don't need to know the route just yet. You just need to know that there's a route out there that you'll be able to figure it out. So you don't necessarily need to know the how, you just need to know that you can. And if you believe that you can, you will.
100% amazing. No, that right there was just super powerful. So I'm just curious, was that the moment that made you want to become a coach, or how did that I know you've shared a bit with us about your health and fitness journey and how you started dieting at a young age. Like, walk me through how then like, what shifted for you where you were like, I want to be a coach and I actually want to help others with navigate this. Like, what was that for you?
Yeah, so I on this journey to losing weight, so we're still back in 2019, managed to start losing weight using the like techniques I've mentioned. I also was doing intermittent fasting. Now, I wasn't doing intermittent fasting for the fasting benefits. I was doing it for, again, a lot of air quotes around there. But I was doing it for the cap around food. It was finding out I was emotionally eating a lot on an evening. It was really coming like after 8 p.m. God, the emotional eating was like, that was what was causing it. And it was me and a 100-gram bar of dairy milk or Galaxy. And like, I was eating the whole thing. And I was like, if we can curb this is going to sort out the calories. Like, it's going to sort out the calories just fine. And that was the thing that I really worked on, is I worked on like kind of reducing that emotional eating. At the time, I don't think I clocked on that I was emotionally eating. It was more, again, in hindsight, I reflected on that and went, yes. But I knew that was the thing that was sabotaging me, like from the top level. So I really worked on like changing that. And the way that I did it, oh God.
No, I was just going to say, so what was it for you when you identified that it was the emotional eating that was sabotaging your deficit? What did you then do, or what helped you and supported you to kind of curb that, so you supported yourself so you didn't emotionally eat anymore?
So this I'll talk you through as a reflected thing. So this is what I figured out down the line. So I figured out that
jumping ahead.
This is going to be like jumping backwards and forwards. So I've been kind of like reviewing this as like this is what I've done in the past. My emotional eating triggers tend to be around loneliness. So whenever I'm feeling lonely, I think part of this probably comes from whenever I felt like alone as a child, or even like, especially when I had like depression within my first year of uni, a lot of that came from feeling isolated and feeling really alone and feeling by myself. And that really triggered emotional eating for me. Like when I then addressed that, it like as a thing, and I was like, right, I'm lonely. How do I solve that loneliness? So the way that I stopped eating on an evening was I made myself really busy on an evening. So I it wasn't great for sleep, but I was in the bar sports team. So I played pool on a Monday night. No, I played darts on a Monday night, pool on a Tuesday night. I also had netball training on a Tuesday night. Wednesday I had a netball game, and then went out on a Wednesday night clubbing because that was like the sports social night. Thursday night I was usually hungover at this point. Bear in mind, I did fat loss master students, so if anyone says that you can't drink alcohol and lose weight, it's bullshit. I drank an awful lot. Every Wednesday night I ruined my body for Thursday. Thursday came around and I was usually very hungover, and we had netball training, and then Friday I was either needed a night off by that point, or I'd go around and see friends, or we'd go on another night out or whatever, but I'd never drink as much on Friday night because everything, one, was more expensive, and two, I was still wrecked from Wednesday. But like all of this was like balanced within calories and stuff. And yeah, and then I'd have like Saturday, Sunday was more just like a rest and recoup time, and we usually used to play like board games or whatever as a flat. But yeah, like it was very much I kept myself busy. And I kept myself occupied on an evening, the time when I was loneliest. So yeah, like it was more about being around people and being like with others, and I used that just to kind of like feed off of. But again, I didn't realize that it was to do with the loneliness until I was like 23, 24, when I was reflecting back on this and like thinking about it. And like that was something that was really interesting to look at. Like I solved a problem without realizing what the root of it was, but when I knew what the root of it was, it meant that whenever it came up in the future and my environment had changed, because I knew how to handle it in the university environment, but maybe not outside of that, when that environment had changed, I can now address that in any situation. So at the moment, at the time of recording, my partner Julia is currently away, so I know that loneliness is going to be quite high. I like having another person around, so because that loneliness is going to be quite high, I've got things booked in to make sure that I see other people. If I go 2 weeks without seeing another person, I will go insane, and I will be eating about 10,000 bars of dairy milk. So in order to avoid that, I have got work days booked in with friends. I'm going back to see my parents. I'm going for a walk with one of the neighbours. Like all of these little things, just so that I speak to another human, like are in there, so that I don't end up like emotionally eating because of that loneliness. So just knowing what your triggers are is so powerful, because you can like you can just really address the actual issue that's there. So yeah, that was kind of like the reflection of it, like the reflection of to back when I was like making these changes for good. I made the change but didn't realize why I made the change. I almost learnt the why afterwards. But if
Yeah.
you're doing this journey like for the first time, my best piece of advice is to like do this stuff whilst you're going on, because it will make it a lot easier down the line. Because otherwise, when
Yeah.
you change environments, you change routines, you change situations, the habits will
Mm.
shift and possibly re-come up in those situations as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, wow, that's what a beautiful arc though. You've gone from like age 10 to like 23, 24 and having that reflective moment. And it's so powerful what you said there. Like, not like you might not have understood the root, but you understood in that moment what you needed to support yourself in order to stop and prevent the emotional eating, which is really cool. And in and of itself, did you notice that shift your relationship with food? Because then it wasn't about judgment or shame or guilt. It then shifted to how can I support myself? What do I actually need in this moment?
Yeah, so I think it really shifted to being about like being consistent. Like I knew that for me, if I wanted to make a change that lasted, it needed to be something that I could stick to habitually. It couldn't
Sure.
be like, it couldn't just be something that was crowbarred in. It had to be a habitual change that would last, because
Yeah,
otherwise I was
yeah.
like, I need to be able to live my life but also be healthy within my life. And again, I believe that was possible, and no shock it is. So
Yeah,
like
yeah.
because I knew that it was a possibility, like, and I had this belief in
Sure.
my head that it could be possible. Yeah, like I just gave it my best shot, like, and that was the most important thing there. I realized that I didn't actually answer your question as well of like, at what point did I decide to become a coach?
No, that's okay. I was going to say, I was just about to ask you, was that the moment that made you want to become a coach? So yeah, I was just going to ask that.
So, well, for me, for coaching, so I lost the weight between probably about age 20 to 21, because it was the end of, I would have been 21 because it was the end of my third year of uni, which was when
Okay.
lockdown one hit, for COVID. So
Mm-hmm.
in lockdown one, because I was a uni student at the time, or finishing off my degree, I had no essays to submit after I'd like sent one bag. I had no exams because all of the exams got cancelled, and I'd got my next thing planned anyway. So like I wasn't waiting for, like, I wasn't thinking, oh my God, I've got to apply for like 10 different jobs. So I had a grand old time in lockdown one. And because I had nothing to focus on and literally my brain was empty, I worked out a lot. Like I got into exercise. I started like lifting some weights. I'd found some old dumbbells that my dad had got, and he kept in like the cabin in the back garden. So I started lifting weights. I started following like workouts. I was working out often. Once a day, I'd do some sort of like weightlifting in the morning, maybe some yoga, maybe just something, probably like pretty much 5 days a week, I'd do some weightlifting. And then twice a week, sorry, I'd do yoga. And then the next half of the day, when we were allowed out, I'd go for a walk. Me and my brother would go out for a walk, usually for like 60 to 90 minutes. So I'd get my 10,000 steps in. So ironically, I wasn't
Beautiful.
realizing that I was doing this, and I wasn't aiming to do steps at that point, but it was so happened that that's what I was doing. And with all of those things kind of connected together, I ended up like finishing off my weight loss journey. So at that point, it was probably about a year's worth of weight loss journey, and I lost 3 stone, which is for about
Amazing.
20 kg-ish in new money. And for anyone that needs it in pounds, no, you don't. It's about 48, 50 pounds. I went from 83 kg at my heaviest to 60 kg at my lightest. But when I talk about maintenance, I'll talk about why I'm now heavier than what I was at my lowest, but why that's not a problem. So when it comes to so basically like I lost the weight over that kind of like time period. And yeah, like at that point, I'd really started to understand and think about nutrition. And because again, I had absolutely naff all to do, I found a free course online to do like as a like nutrition course, understanding the basics of nutrition. So I started doing that, started learning it. And to cut a long story short, basically, my plan was to go to France to go be an au pair. Went to France, went to go be an au pair, and I was meant to be there for a year. So I was meant to be being this like glorified nanny for a year. And I got there, and
Life goals.
yeah, and the family weren't very nice, and we're just going to put it there and leave that one in a box.
Okay.
So I ended up coming back to the UK after a month. So I was meant to be there for a year, and I was like, I don't have a job. So I moved back in with my parents, and I started looking for jobs. This was also around the time where in the UK, they were doing like if you just travelled from anywhere, you needed to do like a 2-week quarantine. So I'd just come from this really tricky situation. My mental health was pretty much down the drain, and then I had to isolate for 2 weeks where I couldn't leave the house. Yeah, like not a good time. But anyway,
Shitty situation, yeah.
Yeah, in this whole process, I started like applying for jobs, and this job came up at the gym, and they basically offered to pay for my PT qualification, or like pay for the applicant's PT qualification. If you worked for them for 6 months, you got paid for the work that you were doing, and they paid for the qualification. And then at the end of the 6 months, you could decide whether you wanted to stay or not. And I was like, well, I'm not doing anything else. Worst case scenario, I was like, I can. I wasn't having any luck applying for anything in my like related to my degrey. So I was like, right, well, I'll do this. I've lost a lot of weight. Like, worst case scenario, like, I hate it and I don't do it. Best case scenario, I help a few people lose weight. Cool. I was like, I've done it. It can't be that hard. So, yeah, I think if you get anything from this, it's just that I'm slightly delusional. That everything's easier than what it actually is.
Hey, sometimes that's good, because the opposite of that is when you think everything's going to be a lot harder than it is. It gives you procrastination. You end up not doing anything.
So, do you know what? It is much better to believe in things and be slightly delusional about it, because otherwise you'd never get started. So, the moral of the story is be purely delusional and just believe you can achieve everything. But if you believe it, it'll come true. So, so at that point, then I started being a coach, and it wasn't necessarily until about a year into my like being a PT that I actually started realizing that I was helping people. And I was like, I always felt like it was going to be a job that I left. And I think for me, because I never thought it was I thought it was just a stopgap effectively. I thought I was going to do it for 6 months. But almost like a year and a half into my actual career, I was like, maybe this isn't a stopgap. Maybe you actually like this. Yeah. And for me, it kind of like hit me afterwards. And I was like, I need to let go of this idea that this isn't something that I want to do, because this is exactly what you want to do. And whenever I like said, as a kid, like, what do you want to do when you grow up? It was always, I want to help people. Like, that's exactly what I want to do. And it wasn't until I was doing this job and I was helping people lose weight and actually doing it in a sustainable way that they'd never been able to do before, that I was like, I'm helping people. I am doing what I wanted to do. And that for me gave me that this is actually working. And I think for me at first, like when I first started off as a coach, it didn't necessarily, it came out of a place of necessity of a needed a job, but it is kind of like transformed into this thing of been like, you're exactly where you're meant to be right now. Like, you are doing exactly what you are meant to do. And I think that for me was a realization. And like, usually when you hear people talk about, how did you become a coach? It's like, I knew exactly what I wanted to do. This was the right path. I left my corporate career. I did this, this, and this. And I know it's exactly your journey.
No, mine's similar to yours in that I fell into it. But yeah, no, it's so fascinating when it is that, when you fall into something and you're like, oh, this is exactly where I'm supposed to be.
Yeah, and like
I came from corporate, but I was just like, oh, this is a hobby for me. And then similar to you, I just fell in love with it, and I always knew I wanted to help people. But then I didn't realize how much I fell in love with it. I'm like, no, this is not a hobby or as you say, like a side project or anything. Like, this is what I want to do.
And really it was cool. That shift for me of going like, oh, this isn't just like for you, like a side project. This isn't just something that's a stopgap. That actually then let me like fully lean into this, and that's really helped me help a lot more people and help people in a better way, because it meant that like I am in this for the long haul. So it means that whenever someone comes to work with me, it's me and you, and we're working on this until we are done with it. Like we are seeing this through to the end. I recorded something on limiting beliefs yesterday for the people in like that I coach. And I said, one of my limiting beliefs is that I don't see things through. And I was like, but that's not what the evidence says. I was like, I've got a bunch of evidence to say that I see so much through. But yet I've still got this limiting belief that I don't see things through. And I was talking about like how to break those beliefs. But it's really interesting, like having this conversation that, do you know what, like the limiting beliefs can be there, but it doesn't mean that they're true whatsoever. And there is a lot more evidence throughout my life that I always see things through, rather than, not.
Absolutely. And that's so powerful, because like limiting beliefs and that, like, healing comes in phases, and sometimes you can feel like you've overcome a limiting belief, but it might pop up at a different time in your life and you're like, oh, I see you. But it's like knowing how to move through it so that it's not in the driver's seat. I think people, when it comes to limiting beliefs or what they tell themselves, a bit like, if you're unfit, like one dumbbell curl or one squat isn't gonna rectify that. It's how you speak to yourself on a daily basis and how you like learn to shift those thoughts that come in. And that's really powerful that you're like, okay, I've still got this limiting belief, but I'm not letting it affect how I take action and how I show up for myself. And that's the most important thing.
And that's where consistency comes into it as well. Like, it's the consistency in your thoughts. It doesn't matter if your thoughts start off where it's like one thought says that like you can do this and 99 say that you can, because if tomorrow two thoughts say that you can do this and 98 say that you can, and then the next day three thoughts, 97, and if you can keep going down that road, like, and consistently just building it up and collecting the evidence, whenever you walk down a path for the first time, like in your brain, like, and you're making these connections, it will be really hard to walk down because no one's ever been down there before. It's a bit like, imagine you're walking through the jungle and you've got your machete out and you're chopping away the trees, but it's hard to get down there. It's not as easy as wandering down the pavement and the tarmacked paths that you've got outside your house. So all you're doing is chopping down the trees, but the next time that you go down, you've already done a lot of the pruning. So then the next time you chop some more, and then the next time you chop some more, and then, oh, look, okay, we've got a track coming through here, and then we build the track up, and then, oh, we can put some pavement down. Oh, look, we can put some nice trees. We can plant some trees on this part now because we've already chopped down the weeds. We're now into actual gardening, and like, you just keep building it up over time, and then over time, the more reps that you put in, the more that you practice, the more consistent that you are, more like the easier it is to walk down that path. So just the practicing over and over and over again, and practicing your thoughts, practicing your actions, that's how you get good at things. And like, that is where you get that is consistency.
It is, and I wholeheartedly agree with you. And I think that for a lot of women, I know for myself, like, because our brain loves certainty, right? And I think, I don't know for you, but that was certainly a barrier for me when it came to being consistent, not only because, you know, when you've walked the path of diets and plans and surface level solutions, there is that, I guess, thought that comes up that I'm not consistent, rather than the method that's you bought into, or the method that you've tried being the incorrect method for you. It's you taking that on board as an inadequacy or something that's wrong with you, which is not true, right? And I know I struggled with that. And going back to that analogy of like cutting through the path, you know, I wholeheartedly agree with that, because I think the brain does love certainty. And I think we need to normalize there being uncertainty and us feeling wobbly when we start to do something, whether it's health and fitness wise, whether it's starting a new career. There always is that kind of threshold that you're going to come to where it's like, do I lean in or do I lean out? And what are the pros and cons of doing that? And I think the more you can normalize feeling uncertain, feeling wobbly, not having all the answers, but still choosing to lean in, whether that's you showing up daily and imperfectly, because it's not about being perfect. We can get to that in a sec. I know for me that I struggled with consistency because I thought it meant being perfect, showing up every time in the day, every day. But leaning into the wobbliness of life and the messiness of life, and just doing the best that you can do in that moment. Would you agree with that? And what have you seen with your clients around consistency? What has been the thing that's come up the most for them, would you say?
Yeah, for sure. So when it comes to consistency, the thing that usually throws you off is that bit at the start where everything feels new and novel, and like you're scared to push past the discomfort. And it's been scared to push past the discomfort of not seeing the results straight away, and like not seeing it's almost seeing like A plus B equals C. Like, and it's just been like, oh, well, I'm doing it, but I've not actually got any output from this yet. And one thing that I always tell anybody that I work with is that, like, you can control the inputs, you cannot control the outputs. Like the outputs will do what they want. The scales will catch up with us when they want to catch up with us, not when we want them to catch up with us. Like, so all you can do is control what your inputs. You can control what you eat. You can control like the steps, like the amount of steps that you do. You can control when you exercise. You can control how much protein that you eat. You can control all of these things. You cannot control what the number on the scale says the next day when you step on them. You get no say in that other than your inputs. So
100%.
Let's focus our energy onto changing the inputs if they're not right, and being consistent with the inputs. I think the first thing, and exactly as you said there, like consistency feels like it means being 100%, is really like defining what consistency means. So for me, it's setting parameters and setting like habits that we want to achieve, and making sure we're achieving them at least 80% of the time. We don't have to be perfect, but 80% of the time, we know that we're working on that. Pretty much every single client that I've worked with that has lost a significant amount of weight has not been perfect with their habits, but they will have hit them at least 80% of the time. Like I can see that data. So the data that I collect will be like, how many days have you like hit off your habits? And when it is 80% of the time, but look at that, they're losing weight. So like it's very much correlated, and it's about having the right habits in place, but also hitting those habits 80% of the time, and you're fine. And there's a difference, and I want to really stress this, there's a difference between knowing what the right habit is and actually doing the right habit 80% of the time. Because I think I had this conversation with my partner the other day. We were talking about physio exercises. So she had been given some exercise by the physio, so she knows exactly what she needs to do. Has she been doing these physio exercises? No. But there's a difference between like knowing and actually doing. So don't confuse your knowledge of doing things. Like, I know that I need to eat more protein. Have I been eating more protein? No. So one thing that I'm really doing is shining a spotlight on that at the moment, and like doing it, knowing and doing different things. So just don't let that confuse you in your head of just going, oh, well, I know that I need to be doing this, but I'm not actually doing it. Because we end up in this like frustration trap where we're like, yeah, but I'm doing everything that I should be. It's like, no, you know what you should do, but you're not doing it. And it's that consistency side of things. So the best thing that I can suggest here is just to collect data to see if you are being consistent. You are doing the things that you're saying that you're doing. And even if it's just being intentional for a 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 week period, or even longer than that if you can be, like, and just checking that you're definitely doing what you're saying that you're doing, physically ticking things off, right? Have I hit my steps today? Yes, cool, tick that box off. Colour chart on the wall, on the fridge, whatever it needs to be, or an app on your phone, whatever it is, just to tick that off. Have I tracked my food today, and have I tracked in the most effective and proper way? Have I weighed everything out? Have I tracked it as I've been doing it, like, and made those adjustments in the moment? Like, have I got exactly what I ate today? If someone was observing me as a fly on the wall, has everything that's touched my lips gone in my fitness pal or gone in my tracking app? Like, so have you been as honest as what you could be? And if you get through all of that data and like you put all of that in, and it's exactly where it's meant to be, and you've been 80% consistent with it, again, I can guarantee that you will lose weight. So it's about having the right things and doing it consistently, and that just means doing it 80% of the time.
Absolutely. I love that. And what would you say for a woman listening to this right now who feels like, oh, that sounds quite similar to what I'm doing on this diet or that thing, or I've done this before, Holly, like, and, you know, especially someone who's struggling with like that kind of all or nothing thinking, even if she doesn't think she's struggling with that all or nothing thinking, where she feels this pressure there to like have to, I know you're speaking about it in percentages of like, yeah, got to hit it. Like if you hit it 80% of the time, it's not about being perfect. But when it comes to consistency, how do you combat that from, I guess, a self-relationship perspective and a mindset perspective? Because I don't know about you, but as a coach, that's something I definitely see my clients struggle with more is, and going back to what you said there, it's like the difference between knowing what to do and actually doing it. And I feel like that gap is definitely a mindset gap. It's definitely a self-relationship gap. And so how do you kind of approach that when it comes to, when you see a client that's struggling with consistency and she knows the safe habits that you've given her that she needs to work on? Say there's a woman listening to this who, you know, wants to lose 20 kilos, like, how would you combat that kind of perfectionist thinking and that all or nothing thinking, and how to in order to show up on a daily basis, and what consistency actually is? Why don't we start with like how you define what consistency actually is?
I'll actually circle back to the very first thing that you said there about if you were doing something completely different to that, and you're like, yeah, but I'm doing everything. So I'm doing keto and I'm doing it right, and I'm still not losing weight. I'm doing a high fat diet. I'm doing whatever version of, you know, you're doing. The concepts are few, the methods are many. So the concept of fat loss is calories in versus calories out. I don't care what diet you're doing, the way that you are losing weight, the mechanism that you are losing weight comes down to 100%. Energy balance. If energy balance is wrong, then you're going to be gaining weight, losing weight, maintaining weight, depending on where that balance is. Because that is the concept. There's one. The way to achieve that, the methods, there are many ways to achieve that. You could do keto and cut out carbs. By cutting out carbs, you cut out certain amounts of calories, which therefore means you're in a calorie deficit, which therefore means you lose weight. By eating a high protein diet, again, it means that you cut down the number of like calories that you're eating, and therefore you end up like in a calorie deficit, and therefore you lose weight. Methods are many, concepts are few. So just knowing that as an idea is that there's only one thing that you need to achieve, and that's a calorie deficit. The way that you facilitate that can come from a myriad of different things. There are ways that I would definitely recommend and ways that I definitely would not recommend, but as long as you have that deficit, you will be losing weight. To approach the mindset side of things and that the all or nothing thinking and saying, well, what is consistency? And I guess what do we have to be consistent with? I'd say let's take the example of weight loss here, because that's obviously what we're talking about. We want to look at the things that are going to be the big needle movers. So when it comes to weight loss, we need calories in and calories out. Calories out comes down to the energy that you burn by existing. Now that can come from exercise. So any steps that you do and any physical exercise that you do, the cost to exist, which is known as your BMR, but I like to call it your nothing but Netflix. So if you did nothing but watch Netflix all day, that's basically how many calories you'd burn. So if you sat on your ass, literally horizontal, and you're just watching Netflix all day.
I feel like they should officially change it to that name.
Yeah, this is the BMR is boring. No one cares about basal metabolic rate. It's nothing but Netflix. So someone I commented, I had that on a video, and someone commented on the video, but that's not technically true. And I was like, no, it's not technically true, but it's much more interesting to say nothing but Netflix than it is to say basal metabolic rate. Yeah. So there's what you do if you do nothing but Netflix all day, and then there's your basically the effect of calories, the effect of exercise. This is known as non-exercise activity thermogenesis. Some people argue that steps should be in your NEAT calories. Some people say that it should be in exercise. But if you're watching this, and you're physically watching us, you'll see that I talk with my hands a lot. This is an expense. Me moving my hands like this is an expense. I'm expending calories. That's NEAT. Anytime you fidget, anytime you walk to go make a cup of tea, anytime that you literally scratch your back, all of these little things are burning calories because they cost you to move. That is NEAT. Yeah. And then you also have the thermic effect of food. And I think that's possibly one of the most underutilized ways to burn calories. But that's we'll talk about that later if we come on to it. But basically, that's calories out. Calories in comes down to the food that you put in your mouth. Food, drink, anything that literally goes inside your body. Ding, 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 that's calories in. So anything that can be consumed and burnt for energy, then that they are calories. So we want to just take that into account that that we need that balance. So in order to be for fat loss, we need to find that balance where we need an imbalance where calories in are lower than calories out. So we have that energy deficit, and that's where we lose weight. We can do that by increasing the amount of activity that you do and decreasing the number of calories that you eat. Now, notice that I said number of calories and not just decreasing the food. Eat less, move more doesn't work. It's not about eating less. You need to eat better rather than eating less. Eat more, eat smarter, basically. So we want to see this calorie deficit here. So once we've increased calories out, we can do that by increasing your steps, which is probably the best place to start. People are like, I just need to go to the gym more. Nope, the gym's not going to burn that many calories. Go for a walk. If it's between the gym and walking right now, start off by walking more. Walking more is going to have great benefits for your health, and it's going to have great benefits for your overall calorie burn. And if we're trying to lose weight, we need to talk about calories out. Knowing that, we can increase that activity there, and that's going to push those calories out up. We can also decrease calories in, and that's going to be where we make smarter choices with food. So we're going to be thinking about eating more protein, which is where the thermic effect of food is going to come in. And we're also going to have to be thinking about eating more fiber. Now, eating more fiber will help keep you fuller, and eating more protein will help keep you fuller. They're also going to be lower calorie foods, so you're going to be able to eat more of them than what you would be if you ate a high fat food or a high carbohydrate food and feel fuller from that. So we love protein and fiber. Another note on this is that it's a lot easier to add things into your life and add things into your diet than it is to take them away. So if you're someone that's like, I'm going to give up chocolate, I'm going to give up this, that's fine, except your brain's going to hate it. Your brain is going to just see a habit hole and go, but I want chocolate. You've put it in Pandora's snack box and I can't eat chocolate. So
that's a psychological effect of not wanting to talk about the pink elephant in the room. It's you can't have chocolate. Now I really want chocolate.
And now that's all that you're thinking about. So rather than doing we're not going to eat this and you only focus on not eating chocolate, what you're going to do instead is you're going to add something new into your life. So rather than going, I need to cut out the chocolate, we're going to add in more fruit and vegetables. We're going to add in more protein. And that makes it a lot easier to stay consistent, because for most people's brains have more go circuits than they have no-go circuits. So it's almost like we're better at driving through green lights than we are at stopping at red lights. And so think of it like that way, as we want to we're good at driving through goes, so we want to make sure that off we go basically, and we add things in. And so the more that you add in, the easier it will be. So focus on adding positive health habits. So adding more protein in, adding more fiber in, adding a meal structure in, adding things in, and focus on taking things off that way and accumulating positive things rather than taking away like quote unquote negative things. So yes, you might be consuming too much chocolate, but as I was, but that wasn't the thing that I necessarily needed to directly address. That was going to get addressed indirectly through increasing my protein, increasing my fiber, focusing on my food, focusing on like when I was eating, because that was reducing my overall calorie intake. So to cut a long story short there, if we want to know the best place to start, it's going to look at the biggest rocks. What's going to move the needle? So if I said, right, I'm going to start by focusing on the time that I eat protein. Well, that's a load of rubbish, because that's not the thing that's going to be the big needle mover. The big needle mover is me going to be going from 3,000 steps to 7,000 steps. So it's going to be about
the fat burning zone.
It's about finding the thing that's going to move the needle. So let's say we've decided that we're going to do steps. Right, okay. How many steps can we feasibly add in? I want to make a realistic change. For most people, that's going to be an extra 1,000 steps per day. We're going to do that for a 2-week period. If you add in, let's say you're doing 6,000 steps and you go up to 7,000 steps, you hit that 7,000 steps, that's an extra 10 minutes of walking per day. You can find 10 minutes. If you're doing that extra 10 minutes of walking per day, and then you go, after the 2 weeks, we've hit at least 80% of the time, we go, right, let's increase that up to 8,000 steps. So then we do 8,000 steps, do that for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month, whatever we need to do. Are we hitting that 80% of the time? Yeah, cool, right. Now let's increase that again. And you increase that to a number that you kind of like cap out at. For me, I work on around 11,000 steps per day. 10,000 isn't a magical number, it's just a satisfying number. But we want to be getting in at least 8,000. A lot of the research points out that the health benefits they don't stop at 8,000, but they start to the curve smooths off a little bit. If you're doing under 4,000 steps per day, your risk of prematurely popping your clogs has massively increased. So do more than 4,000 steps, do at least 8,000 steps. That's where the health benefits are. So if we get to 8,000 steps, great, we can increase on beyond that if you've got the capacity to. I definitely would encourage you to. 10,000 is a good number to aim for in that respect, but you don't have to hit 10,000. It's not the end of the world, but I'd say work your way up to at least 8. So that's.
I love what you said there. Sorry, I love what you said there as well, where you were talking about increasing it from 1,000 steps or a day and wherever someone's at. So someone listening to this right now, if they're consistently hitting 3,000 steps a day, hit 4,000. If you're doing 6,000 steps a day, aim for 7,000. And I love that, because in terms of consistency, it's so good to incrementally put in change. I believe there is a quote somewhere that says the only real change is incremental change. And I wholeheartedly believe that. And what you've just said there for consistency is just super, super helpful, because, especially for all the perfectionists listening in that think they need to, really, what's that saying? Focus in or drone,
lock in. That's the new one. Lock in.
Me trying to be cool. Lock in on, having to hit 10,000 steps a day. Well, realistically, if you're someone listening to this who's only hitting 3,000, 10,000 is a little bit of a stretch, and doesn't matter how motivated you are, it would be more supportive for you to just incrementally change that week on week. And as you say, start with 4,000 and hit that for 2 weeks, and then bring it up and then bring it up. And in a few weeks, you will be at 10,000, but you'll be at a 10,000 mark that you can sustain because you've done it incrementally based on your capacity and what you've got going on, as opposed to just throwing yourself in the deep end.
For sure. There's a time and a place for locking in or doing that sprint. I often use sprints in my life now, but that's because I know I can be consistent. If you're someone that's constantly in these what I refer to as stormy seas, so you're constantly up and down and up and down and up and down, and imagine you're the boat on that, you're just chopping, and you're probably quite motion sick at that point. What we want is
motion sick of life.
Yeah, motion sick from your diet. What we want is steady seas. Like we can have ebbs and flows, little bounces, little bit of waves. That's all right.
Mm,
But what we want is it to be
mm,
generally steady. We don't after a straight line.
mm,
We want steady. So if we can get that
mm,
steadiness there, that's really really helpful. Now, once you've done that and
mm,
you've established that you can do that and your baseline is steady, you may have the capacity to put sprints in. I work well in
mm,
sprints, so I have
mm,
periods of the year where I'll push really, really hard. And so at the start of this year, I use the New Year energy, and it's never New Year, new me, because like I've been the quote unquote new me since 2019. But, like it was more of the I'm going to use the New Year energy. I'm feeling good. I'm kind of feeling the hype. So I really sprinted through the first 8 weeks of this year, and I followed the consistency games, which is like a program that I run. I joined in on it, and I absolutely loved it, and it was a great opportunity for me to practice and really like hone in on those like habits and behaviors for myself. And then afterwards, I just dropped it back down again, being back to that 8% consistent. The thing is when I was on my sprint, I was just between 80% and 100%, whereas the rest of the time
yeah.
I'm just at 80%, and like that's fine as well. And if I ever notice my behaviors are slipping down to the 70, the 60, the 50%, and for me, I don't track my behaviors every single day. I track my steps every day. I don't track my water intake every day. I don't track my calories. I track my calories quite rarely now. But like it's the knowledge of knowing how consistent you've been, and over time you get good at this. I have been maintaining my weight now for basically 5 years. Like, and
Amazing.
within those five
Okay.
years, you get good at things. Like
Yeah,
I
of course.
know if I'm eating my calories because I fundamentally understand how calories work. Like, and I understand how many calories in a thing.
Mm,
Sometimes I'll do a day
yeah,
where I check my calories and I'm just checking that I am eating what I think that I'm eating.
yeah.
Especially because I notice that, like, if I go through a period of running more, my appetite increases and therefore my energy expenditure increases. So I need to eat more
Mm,
calories, but I want to check that I'm eating the calories from the, like, quote unquote right foods that are going to fuel that performance.
mm,
But again,
sure.
we could go into a whole other podcast episode on fueling performance.
Totally.
The key thing is that we want to make sure that, like, the behaviors that you're doing, you're able to do at least 80% of the time. And then if you have sprint periods, absolutely fine, where you push yourself to be 90% consistent, 100% consistent, somewhere between there, that's absolutely fine. Like, you can do
Mm,
that, but I wouldn't suggest doing that until at least into your journey where you have lost weight, you've done that 80% consistency for a couple of years. Like, and we often think that we want to get fat loss done and over with, and it has to be something that we complete in 6 months, in 12 weeks. But, like,
yeah.
give yourself time, give yourself grace, give
Mm,
yourself, like,
mm,
the energy to not be perfect, because we
mm,
often expect that we need to be perfect and we have to do things in a certain way, and that's not true.
mm.
Like, no
No.
one's in a rush. Like, you don't have to be in a rush to complete this. If this is about you getting
Mm,
healthier, this is about you changing your life for good, this is about you never really having to jump on another diet again, do
mm.
it right and do it slowly. You don't have to change everything tomorrow.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I love that. I love that. And so for a woman listening to this right now where she's like, okay, I've got the habits that I need to work on. I've got those things in place, and I'm sure like anyone listening to this right now has taken away so many things already because you've covered so much. What would you share to someone who's going through, like, say a stressful period in their life? Because I think when we talk about consistency, it's easy to talk about it on, and you just touched upon like the different seasons around like sprinting or not sprinting. That's one season. But also around like the seasons of life where, say, there's a woman listening to this right now who, who's going through a lot of stress, or who's just had a lot of curveballs thrown at her, who's usually very consistent, it has done those 5 habits or some variation of those habits and is pretty like confident in them. What's your kind of go-to when it comes to navigating like a season that you weren't expecting in life? How do you stay consistent? Because I think it's easy for most people when they have the knowledge and understanding and they implement it in an easy season in life, like you're winning, you're laughing, right?
Yep.
But how do we how do we stay consistent, and what does that kind of look like when we're in kind of a more rougher season or in a more difficult season of our lives? Like, what's your kind of go-to, and do you have a moment where you've kind of navigated a difficult season, and how did you stay consistent through that?
Cool. So we've got two things here, the next best thing and the speed to return. So the next
Mm-hmm.
best thing, and I should have clarified this when I said we're going at 80%, right? 80% of the time we're doing basically pretty much bang on what we said we're going to do. The other 20% of the
Yeah.
time we're doing the next best thing. We're never at zero.
Mm-hmm.
There's very rarely a time that we need to be at zero unless you are physically injured, or you like for whatever reason there is something that's gone on in your life, whether it be someone has passed away, whether it be that you have like just gone through a very traumatic breakup and you literally need to spend the day in bed eating ice cream and watching Legally Blonde, like whatever it is that you need to do, like and sometimes we will have those days, but it's very rare that we need to turn that dimmer switch all the way down to zero. What we need to do is do the next best thing. So the next best thing is just a concept that I came up with, where like perfection is up here and then everything underneath that is just like a next best thing approach. So like all is being perfect. Let's say that's hitting 10,000 steps per day. Well, the next best thing might be like, okay, well, I'm not going to hit my 10,000 steps per day today. I've been in a meeting all day. Everything's been going on. I've had to pick the kids up from school, and X, Y, and Z has happened, and I've just not got the hours. I'm solo parenting tonight, and look, the steps are just not happening. All right, well, what's the next best thing? Well, the next best thing is getting in as many steps as I can. I'm currently on 3,000 steps because I've managed to get those pottering around, but it's 7 p.m. Right, how am I going to get in at least another 3,000? Well, the kids are already in bed, which is great. Now I've just got the evening to myself. What am I going to do? Well, first off, I'm just going to go do a little bit of like life admin, but I'm going to make sure that I do some extra steps. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring the washing down in 2 loads, or I'm going to I'm going to do some few steps whilst I'm watching TV. I'm going to stand and march on the spot for a little bit. I'm going to do laps around the sofa, which is quite fun. So just don't make yourself dizzy. If you've got a walking pad, I'm going to stand and use the walking pad whilst you're watching TV. I am going to if you have got the capacity to get outside for a walk. I'm going to go do a 15-minute walk around the block. Like whatever it is that you need to do to go get yourself active, to get them in, just do something. And if that gets you an extra 3,000 steps in, great. If that gets you an extra 4,000 steps in, great. But that's the next best thing. And it's just seeing everything as a spectrum rather than seeing everything as like absolute. So it's not you do your 10,000 steps or you don't bother. It's how close can we get to that 10,000 steps if that's what your goal is. And that's the next best thing. So when you can't be perfect, what's the next best thing that you can do? I'll do a food example as well. So say the perfect example is you have your home cooked meal that has protein in it. Half the plate is vegetables and a quarter of the plate is carbohydrates. And then your partner goes, let's get takeaway and let's get everything that we can get from the takeaway. I'm talking salt and pepper chicken, I'm talking salt and pepper chips, I'm talking about prawn crackers, curry sauce, like etc. Your partner is the biggest saboteur in this situation. Let's say they're your choices, they're your 2 ends of the spectrum. Choice number 1 could be that you say that, all right, well, I stick to my exact same plan, but that's perfect. But you go, do you know what? I don't have the capacity right now. I'm tired. It's been a long week at work. No, we're not eating chicken, broccoli, and rice. So the next option, the next best thing might be that you go, right, I have my chicken and broccoli that I was planning on having. This is the most boring meal as well. Please do not eat chicken and broccoli for the rest of your life.
I was going to say, I love chicken and broccoli.
Yeah. But straight right.
Paints a good picture, though. Paints a good picture.
I would be right down at the Chinese as well if we were having chicken and broccoli. So yeah, the next option might be, okay, well, I'm going to have I'm going to get the fried rice from the takeaway, but I'm going to have it with the protein that I've created and some vegetables, because I know that the vegetables I won't have any extra. And what I'm not going to do is like sit and graze on the prawn crackers for the next 3 days. The other thing to think about might be like, okay, well, let's say we decide, no, we're not going to have a takeaway, but we're going to make it super easy for ourselves and we're going to just cook something out of the freezer. Okay, there's some burgers in the freezer, so let's get those. We're going to have it with some chips and we're going to have it with some frozen veg. How easy was that to put together? You stuck it all in the air fryer and or the microwave and your job done. So again, it's just going, what can we manage? Like what's feasible? And then you might still have the option of, right, well, we're going to get the takeaway, but we're not going to order everything but the kitchen sink. We're going to just I'm going to get my fried rice. I'm going to get it with a source of protein, and I'm going to make sure that I have plenty to drink on the side so that I'm not overeating. I'm going to make sure that there's some vegetables with it as well, and I'm going to eat until I'm 80% full. So all of that is just a spectrum. So rather than it being, all right, I was perfect and I ate my chicken, broccoli and rice, the saddest meal ever, or I did absolutely naff all of a sudden we've just created like 3, 4, 5 different other options, and they're just examples. Like you could create so many different options of like different things to do. And by the way, like perfect doesn't have to be the ugliest meal in the world. It can just be something like, it could be that you were making your homemade lasagna, but now you just can't be asked to spend like 45 minutes in the kitchen making lasagna. Let's be real, actually lasagna takes close to 90 minutes if we're making a good one. Like if we're
90 minutes,
I do have 90 minutes. I absolutely do not. Hence why we're never eating lasagna. But yeah, if you just understand that, like everything as a spectrum and see it as a as that spectrum, then that works well. So that's the next best thing mindset. And then the other side of that is the speed to return. So if you do fall, quote unquote, off track, the speed to return is just about getting back, quote unquote, on track as fast as possible, or getting back to that next best thing spectrum. So say you did end up having the Chinese takeaway, you ended up having everything but the kitchen sink, you, for whatever reason, it might have been like your birthday or whatever, and you decided that was this is the decision we're going to make, this is the meal that we're having, I want to have this. The speed to return is just how fast you get back to normal. So the next day you wake up, you do your steps, you hit you eat your usual breakfast, you eat your usual lunch, and you eat your usual dinner. Like, nothing changes too much. It just looks normal. It's never overcompensating. It's never shooting down massively. It's never going, right, well, I need to go to extremes. That's stormy seas. We don't want stormy seas. We want steady seas. We just go back to baseline. We just go back to normal. Everything's nice and calm. If we approach things in a calm way, which I realise the speed that I talk, nothing sounds calm, so apologies. But if we approach things...
No, don't be silly. You're just jam-packed with, like, so much value. Yeah. I'm sitting here, like, amazed, like, wow, this is so good.
If I listen to this at 0.5 times speed, tend with my accent and the speed at which I talk, my apologies. But I hope you found it useful regardless. If with this, like, you just get back to normal as fast as possible, get back to those habits, get back to ticking those boxes off, stunning, chef's kiss, we've done it. Like, and that's what you need. Like, consistency isn't about being perfect, it's about not falling off forever and like not spending then like 5 weeks off track. It's about just doing what you can do over and over and over again and just keeping it as steady as possible. If you think of it as anything and you need that analogy, just think of steady seas, not stormy seas. Consistency is being in the steady seas, and it's about keeping that baseline like there, and like your baseline wants to stay and remain like as high as possible, but it shouldn't be jumping up and down, up and down, up and down. It should be steady.
I love that. That is so, so true and so good. And it reminds me of, I don't know if it's like a famous quote or story around, like, you don't drown by falling into the river, you drown by staying submerged.
Yeah.
And I don't know where that's come from, but that just came into my head just now as you were speaking about the stormy seas and the calm seas. And I'm like, yeah, it's so true. Like, so often, especially when someone who struggles with perfectionism or that all or nothing thinking, we can think that one mistake or one bad week or one bad day it means that we've messed up and just to give up. But actually it's just like, no, like, get back up, like, just do the next best thing, like, identify what's the next thing you can do to bring yourself, quote unquote, back on track. And so that you can keep going. And I love that. Like, everything you've covered today, Holly, is just, amazing. And I'm sure it's going to help so many women, whoever listens to this right now, because you've given us so many good things. Is there anything else that you wanted to share around consistency that we haven't yet talked about? I've only got 2 questions, but they're more kind of personal questions, if that's okay. But like, around consistency, if there's anything else that you want to share, like, please, by all means, share that. Yeah.
I think just remember that you don't have to be perfect, and that the only thing that's like, the only time that you have failed is when you stop. Like, if you fall off track, you're not a failure. You've not failed. Like, it's not final. You get to get back up and do it again tomorrow. You get to get back up and do it again within a few hours. Like, and just remembering that, like, this journey is a privilege, that it is a privilege that you can lose weight. It is a privilege that you have autonomy over your body. It is a privilege that not every single person has. So viewing it that way and just going, how lucky am I that I get to do this, and I get to do this for myself. And when you start to view it like this, and you realize how grateful you are for your body and the things that your body can do for you and that you can do for it, honestly, the journey is so much easier. Like, rather than trying to fight your body, just appreciate it, like, and just see it for what it is. I don't think any sort of weight loss should come from a place of hate or you can be not happy with where you're at, but that doesn't have to mean that you hate your body, and that's okay. And that's something that I'm really passionate about, is making sure that, like, if you are making a change, the change is coming for you and it's coming from you. It's not coming like for or from anyone else.
So true. So true. So true. So I do have a personal question, if you don't mind, if I can ask it. Yeah. So I'm just curious, because you've shared with us today, like, your journey from starting your first diet at age 10 to then losing weight and keeping it off, and now helping so many other women do the same. What's something that you've noticed on your own health and fitness journey, and how that's impacted other areas of your life? So outside the scope of health and fitness, how is your journey, and with both yourself and your body, how has that impacted other areas of your life?
I can do hard things because I constantly practice doing hard things. Way back when I started my weight loss journey, I also just got into running. Like I said, I wanted to be someone who was able to just leave the door and go for a run. I'm not quite sure where
Yeah.
this came from, but like it's always something that I like wanted to be able to do. I think it's because I could never run as a kid. I was always like really out of breath, so like I wanted to be able to go for a run like pretty easily. So I did my first half marathon in 2020. It was just before COVID actually, and it nearly got cancelled because of the wind, not because of COVID. And it was like February 2020, and I did it in just under 3 hours. I'm now like my fastest half marathon, like according to a chip time, is like 2 hours 10 minutes, 12 minutes. So like I've taken basically like 50 minutes off my like half marathon time.
Yeah, that's amazing. Well done.
Which is not speedy work, but that's because I've kept pushing myself and I've kept going. Like, and because I do tough things, like if you've never run a half marathon, like it is a slightly torturous experience, especially doing it for 3 hours. So like,
I take my hat off to you. I've never been a runner, and I admire you for doing that.
but like it is just doing that. And like one thing that I do is I challenge myself to consistency. So last year and this year I set myself the challenge of doing 200 workouts across the year, and that means I have to be consistent. Like if I want to tick it off, I need to do on average 4 workouts per week, and if I have a couple of weeks where I fall behind, then it means I have to do a couple more weeks where I push that a little bit harder. But it's about just staying consistent and focusing on building that up over time. And it was when I decided to go up to that, it was because I was already doing 3 workouts per week. I didn't go from 0. From 3 workouts to 4 workouts per week, or 3.66 workouts per week, as I need to do if I want to hit my goal. But it's again, it's about just making those incremental increases and then staying consistent with said increases, and that being a push. But I constantly push my comfort zone, and that has meant that in life, in business, just basically anything that I do, like I'm not actually too afraid to like push my comfort zone. I don't get me wrong, I do sit in my comfort zone in certain areas, but yeah, and I think that's just being a human. It's okay to be in your comfort zone. You don't constantly need to be putting yourself into a state of fight or flight. Just being in your comfort zone, but not being afraid to push yourself out of your comfort zone is really important.
Absolutely. I wholeheartedly agree with you there. And it's so true. Like, people talk about wanting confidence from weight loss, not realizing that, going back to what you said with the inputs, becoming the woman who is capable of running a marathon, of doing 4 workouts a week, even showing up when you don't feel like it. All of those little things, eating and nourishing your body well, all of those things are like a knock-on effects of actually what brings confidence, like real confidence to you, and your ability to believe in yourself more and have that capability, and believe in your capability, because you've got enough, going back to what you said before, enough evidence that shows that. You're like, I've got evidence in this one area of my life, and because I can do it here, look at me go in all these other areas, which is really cool. It's amazing to have that knock-on effect.
For sure.
That's incredible.
It's definitely something as well where you start improving things in your health and fitness, and you start to see other impacts. Like, well, I feel more confident in my body, and therefore the way that I hold myself in conversations comes across as more confident. The way that I feel in myself, like I'm not, when I'm dressed, I'm not thinking about what I'm wearing and how my body looks in it. I'm just thinking about like being present in them. And so like having that confidence in your body is so underrated, because it takes it means that you're not spending energy on worrying about your body as well. But that comes with time, it comes with practice, and it comes with working on yourself as much as it comes on working on your body.
100%, wholeheartedly agree with you. All right, I've got one question before we wrap things up. I'm curious to know, because you touched on initially like where you started at age 10, going on your first diet, and I'm curious to know, with everything you've gone through in your journey, and obviously being a coach that helps so many other women do this and do it well. So I'm not just talking about like consistency here or health and fitness here, but I'm just curious, if you could go back to that 10-year-old Holly version of yourself, what do you think that she needed to know?
I think she needed to know that it would all be okay, but I am a big believer that some lessons need to be lived to be learned. So in order for me to get here, to be exactly who I am today, I needed to go through every single thing that I have been through, because that's made me into the person I am today. It's made me push harder. It's made me become the person that I am. And without having gone on my first diet at age 10, I wouldn't be helping women lose weight and keep it off, especially when the statistic is that 80% of weight that's lost will be regained within 5 years. Like, when that statistic exists, I want to break that statistic. That is my goal, is that statistic it will be a incorrect fact in 10, 15, 20 years time. Like, that will not be the truth. My goal is that like we will be able to do that, but like if that meant that I had to go on my first diet at age 10 so that so many women after me, or like even like around me, will never have to diet over and over again. I'll take that one every time. Like I'm not bothered. Like for me, like if I had to learn those lessons, I had to go through them stage by stage. Cool. What a privilege it has been to be able to do that, and now what a privilege it is to be able to help other people never need to diet again.
Never do that again. That is such a amazing mindset to have, and so mind blowing. That's so good. I just want to thank you so much for being so open and honest today and sharing your journey and sharing how women can be more consistent. Before we go, where can people find you?
So the best place to get me is on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, or Facebook. If you want to check out any of those, it's at Holly Mills Fitness. The other place, if you like podcasts, is just search Body Beyond the Scales. I have a podcast and we're about to hit 150 episodes. So if you basically have got a lot of time on your hands, you want to hear me witter on from like 2023, then there's an option there. Or just listen to the more recent episodes. Justine's been a guest on it a couple of times as well. So go listen to those ones. But yeah, Body Beyond the Scales on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, and then, or actually on YouTube now as well. Or you can just search at Holly Mills Fitness on any like social media platform, and you'll find me there.
Holly, thank you so much for being here today. For those of you that are listening in, if you got something out of this episode, don't forget to share it with a friend or a work bestie. Until next time, take care.